And so I was like, you know what, let me see if I can add some tabs for some other topics that I'm interested in. And so I tried to create a tab for, the Middle East. I keep tabs on what's going on there a lot. So I like to kind of stay abreast of all the developments. So I created a tab for Israel and it let me do that. And then I wanted to add a tab for Gaza and Palestine. And it said these topics are not supported.
That was Eamon. He's an anchor over at MS Now, and he discovered something recently that he thought that we should all know about. On Meta platforms, which are Facebook and Instagram, you're allowed to curate your own algorithm, but only, of course, for Meta-approved topics. Cenk, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so, look at that, censoring on behalf of Israel. Would have never guessed, as former IDF soldiers work in censoring Meta, and now TikTok, now that Ellison have bought it. So we've got a lot more of those damning details for you guys in this story. And hopefully this will make it out to you guys through all the different algorithms blocking it on behalf of Israel.
That's a really good point. So Eamon said that he does get a lot of, parenting content and food content, like the basic everyday fun things that we all like to see. But as a journalist, he likes to keep up with what's going on in the world. That includes the Middle East, and social media is a big part of that for a lot of us. And that's what he was trying to do when he ran into trouble trying to add Gaza and Palestine to his algorithm. And so then he got to thinking, and here's this.
And it had me thinking a little bit about how important the algorithm is to what we're able to see on a daily basis. A lot of organizations, Human Rights Watch, tech organizations have been tracking this topic and have talked about how big companies and algorithms suppress content from specific regions, depending on criteria that is not always transparent or even clear as to why they do it. But I just experienced it firsthand there, and I thought anecdotally it would be something that y'all should be aware of. That's why I'm sharing it with you guys. Happy holidays.
So if you're wondering why this could possibly be that Meta would want to suppress content pertaining to Gaza and Palestine, we had previously reported that Jordana Cutler, the director of public policy for Israel and the Jewish diaspora at Meta, admitted to something that feels very relevant here.
We banned content with harmful stereotypes about Jews, such as the claim that Jews run the world or other major institutions. We updated our policies to recognize that the term Zionist can be used as a proxy for Jews and Israelis. We banned content claiming Zionists run the world or control the media, and we do not allow for dehumanizing comparisons of Zionists.
And it does feel weird that Meta actually has someone in this position at all, or that even is a position at Meta. But Cutler was certainly the one to fill that role. She had previously worked for the Israeli government, serving as an advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu himself. She was a campaign advisor for the Likud party, and she was the chief of staff for the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. And algorithms are, of course, they're very complicated to understand and control, even for the people who are coding them, the behind the scenes people, but executives like Cutler certainly do have influence over them. For instance, she can't exactly delete or censor the post, but she can flag posts that she feels should be censored. Also, she's very influential when it comes to company-wide policy. For example, there was the time that she fought for Meta to refer to the West Bank as disputed rather than occupied territory. And Cenk, this is something that I think about a lot, how much of our worldview is shaped through these tiny screens, through short form video where you can never really get a good idea of what's happening. And we're seeing the world and we're coming to understand the world through someone else's eyes. And usually these are strangers. These are not people that we know. We don't know much about their background, their personal history and experiences, things that would maybe like shape the way that they would see things. And it's always a battle between trying to stay informed with what's going on in the world and also trying to check your biases and things like that. And then these social media platforms come out and they say, this is a free space. Everybody can post whatever they want. And the algorithm is gonna send you exactly the things that you seem like you want to see. And there are certain things that we as consumers or as just like users of these platforms can do to curate our own feeds. But even then, there's all these blocks that are happening that, that generally the public is not made aware of. So we don't even know what we're being prevented from seeing. And these companies, they wield so much power and influence, and they are very, very aware of that. I was talking about this on Rebel HQ earlier, and I was like, it's like Mark Zuckerberg didn't even learn any lessons from Myanmar and what happened there with Facebook. But then I was like, I don't know, maybe he did learn something. He learned about how influential he can be with this platform. He learned about how powerful he can be. He learned about how easy it can be for him to manipulate people to a certain end. And at the end of the day, he's making money off of it. He's becoming more influential and getting more ingrained with world powers and things like that. So it's a scarier, bigger story than what it might seem on the surface.
Yeah, this one I don't think is about money, to be honest, because there's a lot more people, not just in America, but in the world, that are on the side of the Palestinians than the Israelis. I think this is ideological for a lot of folks. I don't know anything about Mark Zuckerberg's ideology. I do know that, as we just showed you, he hired Israeli thought police to monitor so-called hate speech on Facebook. And she just explained to you that if you criticize Israel, she considers that hate speech. So that's absurd. That's maniacal. That's saying, yeah, Facebook literally has Israeli thought police censoring your content. So she said it. You saw it with your own eyes. But that's not all. Now turn to TikTok. There, the motivation is more clear and obvious. Netanyahu said we need to buy TikTok to help Israel because there's too many videos of people seeing what's actually happening in Gaza, basically. And then Larry Ellison and David Ellison bought TikTok. And so they're pro-Israel zealots. Ellison has given more to the IDF as charity than any other person there is. He gave him 16 million in the middle of the genocide. David Ellison considers Benjamin Netanyahu to be an uncle to him, according to the New York Times. And so what happened at TikTok? Well, I'm gonna quote here, not a far-right site, not an anti-Semitic site. I'm quoting the Jerusalem Post in Israel. Headline, TikTok's new hate speech manager is former IDF soldier and proud Zionist. And they explain Erica Mendel's new position involves developing and driving the company's public policy positions on hate speech. Hate speech, quote unquote, which of course is about declaring anything that is critical of Israel to be hate speech and not allowed. And of course, if you want to do hate speech against Muslims and Palestinian and Arabs, that is wildly encouraged. And please do some of that so that Israel can smear Muslims in the world. And unfortunately, they don't have a lot of human beings doing that. They have bots, trolls, some Israeli influencers paid by Israel at $7,000 a pop, right? And they have almost all of traditional media anyway, but it's never enough. So if you're not sure about Lindell, this woman who's hired to be Mendel, who's hired to be the thought police at TikTok. On her, this is again the Jerusalem Post I'm quoting. On her LinkedIn, she says she was responsible for, quote, developing and managing high-level advocacy and policy delegations to Israel for political, press/media, religious and civic and academic thought leaders. So her literal job earlier was to do propaganda for Israel among politicians, the media, religious, civic and academic leaders. So they got not just thought police, but literal IDF, literal job of propaganda, brought them over to TikTok, and now she'll be thought police for Israel there. So, but they don't, back to the money part of this for a second. I think in the long run, it'll be a huge financial mistake for them. They're paying an enormous amount of money for TikTok. And yes, what I remember is Rupert Murdoch bought MySpace thinking, oh, I'll be in with the cool kids and I could do pro-war propaganda on MySpace and yay, and pro-Israel everything on MySpace. And then as soon as he bought it, it collapsed because people were like, oh, it's now junk. It's stupid Murdoch propaganda. So if they turn Facebook and TikTok into that, they'll eventually collapse. And purely into that, they'll eventually collapse. And then Israel Free Things will pop up, platforms, and they'll do way better because you know who wants all their thoughts and ideas and content controlled by the Israelis? Literally no one but the Israelis.
Yeah, shout out to Tom, but it's so funny that you mentioned MySpace because I'm a solid millennial. I was in high school whenever MySpace was really, the thing to be on, right? And I remember that. I remember how like overnight it seemed like the entire platform went to just crap, it just wasn't good. It wasn't usable anymore. And it happened very, very quickly. And, I like your optimism, Cenk, as far as, if the same thing happens to Facebook, that maybe we'll see a repeat of what happened with MySpace, where people just kind of got off the platform and became disinterested. I think it's a little bit different though, because with MySpace, we didn't quit it. We went to something else. We went to Facebook, so we had something to replace it. We also had, things like Zanga, but that was a little bit different. But then also at the time, it was still such a new thing, social media. We weren't used to having something on our phones all the time. We didn't even really have like iPhones at the time. And so it was a much more controlled environment. We'd go to school, we'd come home and get on MySpace, and that was it. And when we were off it, we were off of it. And so like this dependency that we have now on social media and to our tech in general, that really wasn't a thing back then. I fear, and maybe you're more optimistic than I am on this one, but I fear that we're a little too addicted already at this point to for that to happen. But okay, well, what were we gonna say?
Yeah, so but yes, I hear you on that. But now everybody's getting outed, and I love what online media is doing. Yeah. It's like an enormous number of detectives all at once. So before we'd yell and scream on Young Turks about, hey guys, these are all coordinated, scripted talking points. And all the way back to the Iraq war, and we've been around forever. So we were on the air then going, don't, it's obviously scripted. Look at these talking points about weapons of mass destruction and their connections to 9/11. They have no connections line. So now I tell you that in the context of this clip I'm gonna show you about from Mike Pompeo. So was one of the top cabinet officials for Trump in the first term. And now in the old days, he would have done this and nobody would have noticed. They would have thought, oh, okay, yeah, this is a normal thing, right? Now, after we watch the clip, I'm gonna tell you what people are saying now.
Let's talk about why Prime Minister Netanyahu wants to go to Mar-a-Lago and talk to President Trump. Reportedly, the NBC News and other outlets are reporting that they believe Iran is expanding its ballistic nuclear program, rebuilding its nuclear program again, reconstituting it, and they want permission to take it out. Should we give them that permission if that indeed is the ask?
Of course we should, and frankly, they're going to do it if it's necessary. The Israelis are going to do the necessary for themselves. Brian, none of us should be surprised that Islamist theocrats in Tehran haven't changed their stripes. This is who they are. It's embedded in their DNA. In the same way Hamas is not going to go peacefully give up its weapons, the regime in Iran isn't going to give up its desire to build out a nuclear weapons program. Yeah, if they're rebuilding, we should do the necessary, go take it out. We're capable of doing that. We can't let them rebuild their air defenses. That would make it more difficult to achieve that mission. So time will be critical in making sure the air defense systems in Iran aren't capable of taking down Western aircraft. If we do that, we should continue to go after their program every time they try to rebuild it.
In the old days, people would have bought into that hook, line, and sinker. Oh my God, Iran's developing weapon. Hurry up and attack them for Israel. Please, please, we have to spend all of our money and our forces and everything. Please, we'll attack Iran. Now that bitch goes out there and simps for Israel, left, right, and center. Everybody's like, what an sellout. How obviously corrupt. That's obviously an Israeli talking point. Lindsey Graham says it, Tom Cotton says it, Mike Pompeo says it. They all work for Israel. So you see the guys in traditional media still doing their propaganda for Israel. You see them trying to buy social media so they could do propaganda for Israel and put in their thought police, etc. But as they're doing that, since the dam is broken, people are pouring in from everywhere and pointing it out. And Pompeo was like, oh, I'm the former head of the CIA, otherwise known as Mossad these days. And I am the former Secretary of State. Yeah, and Marco Rubio is the current Secretary of State. And guess who Mark Rubio was funded by? The Ellisons, who work for Israel, right? So they, in fact, Larry Ellison got him approved with an Israeli ambassador, sent him a $5 million check. These guys are all owned. But now the curtain has been pulled back and we all see them for who they are. So maybe they'll clamp back down. Maybe in 28, one of their robots will win. They'll bring in Palantir. They'll call it national security. They'll clamp down on all Americans, call us all anti-Semites. Whoever disagrees with Israel goes to jail. First Amendment's, and by the way, if you think that's like hyperbolic, no, they already did it on college campuses, right? They literally said, "Oh, you wrote an op-ed against Israel. You're going to jail. You're going to a dungeon, and then we're going to have you removed from the country, etc." So that kind of authoritarian state has begun here in America. And if they win again, it's going to be on hyperdrive. And now it's going to be against the left and the right, and anyone who dares speak up on behalf of this country and not a foreign government. So that's definitely what's headed in our direction. The main question is, will the people win or will the powerful win? And those are two freight trains that are on a collision course.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think the pro-Palestinian movement that we've seen over the last couple of years is actually a really encouraging indicator of the fact that people are paying more attention. They are looking elsewhere to actually find out what's happening in the world instead of just accepting the talking points that they're given. And you're absolutely right about the inherent authoritarianism of these people who are trying to rule over us. They named their company Palantir, and I'm like when that came out, when it was revealed, the first thing that I thought of was obviously the thing that it was named after, which is the Palantir from Lord of the Rings. And I'm like, are we not like watching these movies anymore? Are we not reading enough books? We need to read more as a society. That's my hot take.
So, all right. Well, it's going to be super interesting to see who wins this battle royale. And if we could find a way to talk to one another to keep this rebellion going as the Israeli radicals continue to swallow up more and more of the media.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.